The MTG podcast is a virtual space for women and minorities in the tech and creative industries.
Tune in as we explore inspirational,
educational,
and community insights
through different perspectives, expanding the diverse cultures and societies that reflect us.
We're more than a designer.
We're more than our name badge.
We're more than the work we produce. Welcome to the More Than Graphics podcast.
We're that tribe.
Ta-da! We made it! Hello, everybody in the world. Hello. Wait, I was really high pitched. Let me go back to my normal state. I'm sorry. Hello, everyone. And my Tony Braxton voice. Welcome to the More Than Graphics podcast. We are very impromptu live right now from wherever you are. If you're on Facebook, say hello. If you're on LinkedIn, say hello. If you're on YouTube, say hello. I am super excited that I'm getting ready to have like a super geeked out conversation with other geeky ladies in respect to some pretty amazing show. If you don't already follow the Last Airbender or the Avatar series, you're missing out. And there's a reason why we're bringing up and kicking off Women's History Month tomorrow with this conversation, because women are avatars, and specifically women creatives and women in tech are avatars. So I just want to have everyone kind of say hi, introduce themselves as they see fit. I'll start with you, Priscilla. Oh,
she's frozen.
Oh, and she's so frozen. All right. Welcome to live. All right. Well, let me at least say hi to Jessie. If you guys don't remember Jessie, okay. Jessie is always in the DM. She's always in the comments. She's always giving us all the extra feels and comments to everything that we say. She is our super fan. And so we thought it was best to have her jump in this conversation today to kick off Women's History Month. So hi, Jessie. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Jessie Stemley. I'm a legacy and lifestyle photographer. I really specialize in photographing women and girls, women's empowerment, teen empowerment, and mothers with their children holds a very special place in my heart. So that's what I photograph the most. That's me.
All right. I love this. And if you don't already follow her work, we're going to put all that in the show notes for this episode so you can do that. But you are like our biggest super fan, and we love this about you. You were always cheerleading for us, doing all the things. I'm going to remove one and add one. Ha! How's that?
There she is.
It's perfect that I'm air.
You were more like ice there for a minute.
I love it. Okay, so do you want to say hello?
Hi.
Everyone else kind of introduce themselves in the midst. So it's your turn.
Me, Priscilla. What else are we saying about ourselves?
Technically, we could have said like what we're representing. So what you're kind of seeing is representation of each of the elements today. So when Cicely jumps on here, she will be in her element. All 4 elements will be represented today. So I'm representing Earth.
Yeah.
Air.
I'm fire.
Yes, she is.
And then yes, she is, exactly. And our Cicely will be joining us shortly, and she is representing the Wata tribe. So I am so excited. This is perfectly on Dar because Cicely is all about healing and being in the medical tech field. So that is perfect. Totally on brand for her. I love that. I think the reason why I was so gravitated toward Earth, because I talk a lot about being a bender of elements, and I feel like for a lot of people, Earth is the most tactile version to kind of wrap their head around besides fire. My second option was air, because I tell everyone all the time that as a graphic designer, we are airbenders. We are benders of elements. And so, but I love Toph, and I love her spirit, and I love everything about Toph. And so this is my buns and my green and all the things, because she is a beast and I love her for it. Yeah, so I kind of want to like dive into some like generic questions here in and around like some of your favorite moments before we get started with questions today. But just to kind of kick off what this episode is all about, like this themed episode, we're going to dive into some very good parallels between the concept of the avatar state and Avatar, The Last Airbender, and the experiences of women in the tech industry. So, just as the Avatar state represents the culmination of wisdom and power and connection to past avatars, women in tech offers a harness of their collective, their knowledge, their skills, and support networks to navigate and excel in a very male dominated field. When I say male dominated, I mean like you like this much. Okay. So, through insightful discussions today, I'm hoping that we can explore how women in tech channel our inner strengths, our resilience, and our innovation that's akin to the avatar state. So I hope y'all ready. Y'all. Oh, here we go. Oh, speaking of the Wata tribe.
Ooh, there she is, flowing right in.
Oh, you're muted.
Flowing on in. That's what we do. It is Pisces season also, so.
Oh, snap. There we go. It begins. I love it. Okay, so Cicely, you're representing the water tribe, and I kind of wanted
Water tribe.
to kind of right, like literally water, all the things water, right? I think that's so very transformative to like what you do personally. So is that the reason why I'm gonna let you speak, but is that the reason why you chose water?
So part of it, and I think like from our December talk, we kind of talked about like what's going to be our themes for the year, or kind of like what we're moving towards or working with this year, and going with the flow and just kind of being was one of mine. So I really resonate with that, and I've been more active in making sure that I'm just going with the flow, like the path of least resistance. And again, we kind of talk about water being, people think of water as like, you know, very docile, very calm, but water can be treacherous. Water can be kind of scary too. Mm-hmm. But I'm taking the calm, serene stream and brook path of water.
I feel that babbling brook, like,
babbling brooks, yes.
I feel that. Okay. We're kind of very quickly kind of going through maybe some of the favorite parts about the series. And I was going to kind of kick that off with you, Cicely, and then go back around. So is there favorite parts for you from the series that you feel like are definitely relatable here?
I would just say like kind of finding your own way, finding your own path, I think is a really good theme that kind of carries on. I think we have, just as a podcast, we've always kind of worked off of that idea as well, but just like finding your own path, even if that's non-traditional, going off the beaten path, just kind of doing whatever works best for you and best for your situation. And then I feel like we're always proponents of supporting people doing non-traditional things or going about traditional things in non-traditional ways. But I think that's a very good theme and something that's pervasive throughout the series, throughout our podcast, and throughout our own lives as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, Priscilla.
Well said. What Cicely said, but pretend air.
I love Priscilla.
Well, you know, I haven't seen it yet because I don't really watch TV a whole lot. I listen to it, but I'm going to get on that. But like with air, I guess what I was thinking about as you were talking is that, you know, I feel like air is an element that almost touches all the others. You know, that it kind of runs through and kind of goes through and mixes in. And I like that. I feel like that is very, you know, representative of me, you know, going through all the different things.
Yeah. I totally relate to that too. Free spirits. That's kind of like what I see that in you so much, Priscilla, all the time, free spirit. And I love it because that's something that I feel like is very rare. It's not easy to find. I feel like those are attributes of people who have so many other amazing talents, and you do. So that kind of like, you've got spirit, girl. Spirit.
Yes, I do. How about you?
I love it. Okay. I was going to say in general, like there's so many moments where I feel like in Avatar, there are moments where we challenge ourselves. Obviously, I'm very attached to Katara. I'm very attached to that storyline of her being independent, her finding her sense of responsibility, her sense of obligation. She wasn't defined by the quote unquote social, economical, or statistical roles of her traditional tribe, which I feel like is so mirroring and reflective of a lot of things that we have to do, as you mentioned before, Cicely. Like we have to sometimes leave the tradition a little bit to do something new, to step out and make some changes. So I really love that, her storyline, her character arc overall. I am an Appa fanatic. So if anyone else is an Appa fanatic, this is me. Okay. So I love Appa. I absolutely love all the different types of different animals that are represented, but I loved him specifically. Whoever thinks of a sky bison? I mean, really, a sky bison? That's a big mass. Okay. Like that's big. But for it to fly and levitate and do all the things that it does, it becomes a constant for them. And I love the fact that it also symbolizes a mode of moving forward, that regardless of all the little places that they visit, they come back to Appa. They come back to being a part of the sky, being a part of this flowing essence of air and spirit. And that's kind of like the thing that drives them between each of these different types of worlds and villages that they experience, each of these nations. And so I really love all those little places and those storylines that really kind of help captivate that. But I'll stop talking. How about you, Jessie? I know you've got a lot.
Well, I picked fire because my favorite color is orange.
Yeah.
Also, because it's the most chaotic and emotional, and as far as through the Avatar, it's the most, I won't say difficult to handle, but it was the most where you had to find emotional control to control it, like to get the full amount of power. And I think as women business owners, we not only have to control and take from the people in our past and what came before us and all that, but we also have to be able to control how our emotions and how we perceive the world differently because of what we're doing, kind of like. Mm-hmm. It's that extra level of control that we have to have that makes us masters. And that was important to me and why I chose that.
Oh my gosh, we could talk all day about the masters. I love that you brought that up. That's kind of where I was hoping to go. So like our first kind of question of the night really focuses on representation in tech. Let me read that real quick. Representation in tech and media. How does the portrayal of women and people of color in the Avatar: The Last Airbender resonate with their experiences in the tech industry or creative fields? And I think we all kind of showcase that in different ways. We talked about why we chose what we chose. But I do like the idea of how we can each pull something different, even if it's within our own nation or not, and still apply it in areas for tech. So as you mentioned, control of emotion, that's something we have to do on a regular basis right now. And even more so as things get heated up. We're getting ready to go into a political climate unlike any other. We are getting ready to walk into a lot of spaces and places where we and our bodies are feeling restricted by our own government. And there's a lot of areas that are just kind of unknown. And because of that, we are having to regulate ourselves before the other guys do. Okay. We're having to, alter our emotions or alter ourselves in a way that kind of prohibits us from being our true selves, being in our true form. And so, yeah, I just kind of wanted to get y'all's thoughts on that. Like, do you see areas where, some of these experiences that we have in and around creative and tech, is that reflective of some of the things that you see in the Avatar series?
Sorry, forgot I was on mute. It kind of relates back to what Jessie was saying about fire being one of those, like a lot of times people associate fire with like being tumultuous and out of control. I think it was a very good point that you made. For me, fire is like warmth and, just being toasty. I don't really think about it as the destructive force that it can be. But the same thing with water. I feel like a lot of people underestimate the power of water. Well, you shouldn't. If you've ever owned a home or had water damage, you definitely shouldn't. But one of the things with water is that even though it's calm, sometimes it's persistent. So even if I don't, cause a hurricane or cause all these problems with the water, that little trickle of water can just continue on and can, end up being like such a big mess and such a big problem. So I really feel that like with Water Nation, especially, like that's one of the things that people get underestimated for. But you're speaking of political climate in the work that I do specifically, both in tech and then in person. I work in reproductive health and women's health. So Those things are always circulating in my like general sphere of understanding, and it affects my job and both jobs. It affects me as a woman, as a person, as a citizen of the U.S. But like I said, I'm getting it kind of from all angles because it affects the work that I do. It affects some of the people that I help. But again, it's one of those things where I feel like women, especially, like we're a force to be reckoned with. And when you see these restrictions and these things happening, like the people I work for, the companies I work for that are women owned or women driven, very much not taking it lying down, signing petitions, lobbying, going to all sorts of conventions and speaking up about it at any cost and at any time they can, because they understand that this is like a much bigger picture thing. It's not just for our generation. It's not just for the people it's affecting now. It's for our daughters, their daughters, our nieces, our friends, our the generations that might come. So we're using that slow trickle is going to build up to be a force of water. So I think that's definitely something that women in general get underestimated for, especially when you're in a tech space that's male dominated. Luckily, I work in female dominated tech spaces, so that's really nice. But again, there's still males making the decisions that affect the other 50% of the world population, which is an interesting thing there too. So I think that's really cool that Jesse pointed out about fire being an element that is often seen as destructive and something, really terrible. But just like water, it's like the opposite end of that. People usually associate it with like, oh, we love water, we love the beach. But you forget that there's also the other flip of the coin with water, where water can be destructive, water can make a lot of changes, and it doesn't have to necessarily happen like with brute force or like very quickly.
I love this. I am literally telling Priscilla a little bit more about Aang. So she because I'm sitting here doing all the things. I love this. And I love the fact that, again, we're pulling from the elements of things and again, kind of reinventing it or finding ways so we can be inspired by it to kind of change our current situation, our current nation, whatever that is. Maybe it's a combined element of water and fire, or air and earth, something along those lines. But I see all of these moments in the Avatar series throughout, where again we see ourselves. Like I said, we talked about a lot of the characters, especially the female driven characters, who have more of a spiritual component, a grounding component, if you will. And many of the other counter male characters are a little bit more concrete. They're a little bit more surface, if you will. I do like the fact that there's a little bit more. I feel like there's a little bit more to some of the female characters. We talk a lot about we talk a lot about all the different types of female characters, but I'm really kind of focusing more on the depth in comparison from the women to the men. I feel like that, I don't know if that was intentional. Maybe it was intentional, but I feel like a lot of women who watch the show really connect with several of the female characters. I'm a huge Toph fan, so I talk about her a lot. She's tough as nails. She's absolutely blind. She uses the elements of earth, and she listens and she hears through the earth. And I think that's so reflective of many of us who may not be able to use all of our senses, but we have to rely on that one, right, to kind of get us through. And that could be vision, that could be hearing, it could be anything. Maybe it's just good listening, right? Women and their emotional skills, or soft skills, quote unquote, in general, emotional learning, things that are harder for sometimes our men counterparts to do. So these are areas that are wins for us, but or maybe a higher level of the Avatar state. I really want to talk about the Kyoshi Warriors. Can we take like a side break from that for 2 seconds? Because I feel like that's kind of where this question's coming up now, is the empowerment through characters. The Last Airbender, let me show that really quickly. Do listeners find of our listeners, what do you find most inspiring in the terms of breaking stereotypes and forging their own paths in male dominated industries? So as we talk about that part of it, we already reflected a little bit of that, specifically with the Water Tribe and the big scene toward the end of the series where they're having a literally a war and toward the end, and of all the things that we're seeing with women taking control, women kind of taking over in that area where men were just doing what they normally do, and women were having to step up and showcase that we can do more than just heal people. That was really kind of transformative for me. But as we talk about the inspiration from like the Kyoshi warriors. That was a huge plus for me. Like, and I love the little storyline with Sokka and the daughter of the Kyoshi, kind of the mayor, if you will, of the village. They had that little interaction there, and it's like all the teenage feels and all the things. But overall, like inspiring wise, when we talk about these strong women, these were warriors. They were not just your typical run of the mill towns women. They were, you know, pre-selected, destined to protect their people. And I think that's so, you know, reflective of other areas like Wakanda. You know, we see other areas like that. So yeah, I just want y'all's thoughts on that. I'm trying to stop talking, but it just keeps coming out. I'm sorry. Keep talking.
You can keep doing that because I'm researching still. But I did my homework. I feel like I'm in school. I totally know what we're talking about, guys. Let me tell you, with my glasses being all smart. But you know what I'm finding interesting about my character is that they're saying because air represents freedom, right? And it's also like the keeper of the world's balance and peace. And it's funny that this character, did you pick this specifically for me? Because it's constantly grappling with burdens thrust upon him. And he's his job is to restore the peace and the balance of mankind, but still be a kid at heart.
Right? I mean, look at him. He's like 8, 10. I mean, when you look at him,
height. Like we're the same height. Probably can wear the same clothes, right?
I mean, it's like, I don't want to say it's your height. That's not nice, but it's like,
right. He might be taller.
Oh, but he's like super, like he is a child. Like he's very much a child. Do you guys have any reflections on that? Like that part of the avatar, we talk about being in the avatar state, right? We'll get a little bit closer to that, but having Aang be that person at such a young age, having to take on that responsibility. These are things that a lot of us in the tech and creative industry can relate to. We get thrown on a ton of things that technically are not in our scope, in our field, in our range. And yet we're kind of like, we're stuck with them and we have to do them. Sometimes it's more than what we asked for. Sometimes it's way less than what we were expecting, but it's put on us in kind of an abrupt way. And we have to kind of measure up. So I do like the fact that you bring that up, Priscilla, because Aang is that person in this series. But you will, if you follow the series at all, you know how much there's so much growth that comes from this, from that moment, from him understanding who he is to all the way up to being able to, bend all the elements. I think it's just really kind of truth telling to what we can do as women in tech. Our abilities. We can pick up one element and then learn to master them all in my Lord of the Rings voice. Okay, so yeah, thoughts on that, anybody?
I have some thoughts on that. Like, first, can you imagine if we had been like drawn to our calling when we were like 8 or 10? Like how different your life would have turned out if you were 8 years old and you're like, nope, this is exactly what I'm going to do with the rest of my life.
Right.
Like, and learn to grow from that. Like, how different would it be?
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, at some point, I know me and Priscilla probably would have gone into like some level of journalism or novelty or something along those lines and then realized, oh, just kidding.
Well, like, I mean, if it had just landed on you and been like, wow, you're supposed to be this, and now you're going to learn and grow and build from this to, I mean, we do it, but we don't start in the same place, right? We start differently. We like have like 47 different things that we think we're going to do when we're young. I have some thoughts on that too. I feel like as now that I'm an adult, not really, but sort of like an adult, that I feel like somewhere along the line, right, we had a dream of what we wanted to do or a thought, and somewhere it got crushed. And then we picked up something different along the line later and later and later. And if we had just had support or been supported or been able to like, oh, hey, and because we're women creatives and in tech, right? and it wasn't a purposeful thing, like, but I'm sure that like your parents and my parents and everybody's parents are like, like you're not going to make any money with that. Like, like, so we went a different direction where he did not. He was like, here's your gift, have this. And then he moved forward with it, where we're like, now we as parents have the opportunity to be like, well, that's your gift, so move along. But we don't do that.
Right.
In general.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that it's worse for women in creative and tech positions because people say, hey, that's a man's job, or that's what other guys do, I mean, how many years ago, not that many, before women were doctors, like, and nurses, and like, because they just didn't do that, or engineers, because they just didn't do that. And here we are now, in 2024 with women doctors, nurses, engineers, everything. You can do it all, where we couldn't do that before. So, I mean, and I work in a field that is not male dominated anymore, but 50 years ago, photography was a male dominated because the emotion wasn't important like it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So with the, invent of cameras everywhere, and people are like, well, now that we can capture the emotion, we don't have to go and sit still for 15 minutes and get it's different, and it changed the game. So it's a different game for me.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And I love the fact that you point that out. Like, again, where we were 20 years ago is very different from today. Right. Where we were only 30 years ago, 50 years ago, very different from where we are today. A lot of the positions, as you mentioned, were not opportune for us. They were very shut out. And here we are now being able to start entering these spaces and grow them and preserve them, if you will, for future generations and future women and future girls who are wanting to pursue these careers. That phrase, because of them we can, that is,
absolutely,
yeah, it's just groundbreaking. And I think that's very, very reflective of kind of the Avatar state. We're pulling all these elements of different people and different aspects of other warriors before us, and able to wield that in a way that embodies and armors us to move forward and to do impossible things. And that's exactly what Aang was able to do through the span of the series, is learn, develop, grow, and keep going. And that's really reflective, I feel like, of our story for women in tech and women creatives.
It's so funny because usually it's after Cicely says something and I said, went to church.
From the book of Cicely, right?
But it was like, preach from Jessie.
Yes.
I know this is like, therapy PM. Thank you. Now, and I just wanted to add that because Jessie and I are really good friends, that I love that everything that she says. I mean, it's fire. It's fire.
Yes. Which is why she's our number one fan. I mean,
she's our number one fan. I love it.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I think this is this is a really good idea. I'm glad that we decided to do this in and around this conversation and having Jessie on here, because that's definitely extra conversation that we all need. All right, so intersectionality in tech. This was kind of like my next one. Does anyone else have any thoughts before I move on to the next? Sorry, I don't want to cut anybody off.
Just that I agree with Jessie. That was all.
Yes.
That I love that. And I think one thing to add to that is, like, I feel that like with Aang's storyline, like, we feel so empathetic because we're like, oh, he's just a baby, like, he's so young. But then I think it's more of a metaphor for just not being ready, or not thinking that you're ready to handle the responsibilities and this, huge thing that's coming to you, but not knowing and not understanding at the time that you will grow into it, and that you're already equipped with all the things that you need to overcome this thing or tackle this thing, but that you have to go through a journey to grow to that level and to get to it and to learn some lessons along the way to reach that. So I think we've all kind of felt that, probably, whether that be motherhood or a job. I felt that recently with starting a new job, where I was like, maybe I'm in over my head. Like, I said I like to do this, but, like, I don't know. Like, it's math ain't math, and it's looking a lot harder than I thought it was. So I think it's one of those things where we just see so much responsibility or something so large being put on this small person. And I think we kind of feel that small sometimes when we get saddled with that responsibility. But then you look back and you're like, wow, like that thing I thought I couldn't do a year ago or 6 months ago, look how I've grown, or look how much better I am now, versus what I thought I could. So I think that's one of the metaphors too. Like, of course, like Jesse said, if we had been able to be equipped with knowing what we wanted to do at a young age and then being nurtured and helped along the way, all of our lives would look very different, because it wouldn't even be that big of a deal. Like changing into something or pivoting in a different direction wouldn't be a big deal, because we're made for this. Like we already know what we're doing here. So I think that's kind of the metaphor with Aang. It's not just the age, but it's like that we all feel small. We all have like those moments of unworthiness or just not knowing how we're going to do it. But the lesson in it is like overcoming it and learning and pushing through and getting help and, you know, achieving the goal at the end.
Ooh, I love that. You hit that right on the head, Cicely. Like, yeah, I love all that. And I think also, as you were talking about this, it reminds me so much of why people obviously gravitate toward the storyline overall, right? It's a metaphor for what's a person who feels like they're small and insignificant, right? The hero's journey. It's the ultimate hero's journey, really. The feeling inadequate, feeling not, empowered, not feeling too small. And all of a sudden we're embarking on journeys that gives us those building blocks so that we do feel confident enough to make big moves, make big changes, and affect the world. And I think that's very, I love that transparency. Y'all are just fire. I love it. Okay. I can't move on to this next question. This one is intersectionality in tech. How can lessons from Avatar: The Last Airbender help us understand the intersectionality of gender, race, and other identities in the tech and creative sectors? And I love this question. And anyone else can be open to talk about it. They're all pointing. Okay, I'm going to point at Jesse.
I don't know if I can answer this question. I don't know. I mean, from the show, at least, I mean, they're all so different, right? And having so much differences work together, like it's good to see that in a show, but it's good to see that in tech and in healthcare and in creative businesses. Like, we're not separate, we're the same. We're not the same. I mean, we all look different here, but we're all the same capable. We're all capable of doing and being and creating and making. And it's good to see that in other, I mean, especially, I mean, what Avatar came out in when, the early 90s, right? I mean, for it to be that forward then, and having it take so long to catch up to now, right? Where we weren't seeing that work togetherness until like 10 years ago versus almost 40 years ago, you know? So I think that's, for me, like the comparison is that they were all so different, and they had their four different qualities, their four different unique abilities, but we're still all able to work together for a common goal. And that in this room, we have four different abilities, but we're all able to work together for a common show goal.
Yes. I like that. I like that a lot. I was going to add to that, like at the time that Aang was being developed, at the time the show was coming out, you know, Legends of the Hidden Temple was a thing. Like, come on, y'all. Like, we telling our age, like for real up in here.
Right.
I just think that's so Priscilla's covered her eyes. I think that's so reflective again of the times, as you mentioned. Like even then it was very progressive and very forward moving for minorities overall, and how we were able to kind of work and be seen and celebrated. But at the same time, here we are, you know, this is 20 years now, almost, like if not, that we're fast forwarding a little bit, and here we are reliving these moments through this Netflix series all over again. And it's kind of like, wow, like, and where are we now? Right. Like you said, like, where are we now? That's a really good question to kind of bring up, because it does spurn a little bit more robust in me. Like, I saw that when I was a teenager or a young adult, and now I want to be that in the world, right? Like those feelings are still there. I didn't appreciate them as much when I was younger, but now I see that re-emulated as much now, like in my adult life. So yeah, I really, really, really like that reflection, Jesse. That was spot on.
And it's kind of stemming off of what both of you have said. Haha, Priscilla, I beat you to it. Stemming off of what both of you have said already. Just kind of when we talk about intersectionality, it's also one of the things of realizing that like we all kind of need each other in a way. Like there's something, just like Jesse said, that we all contribute. So you could not the earth, the world would not function if all four elements were not there. The same way, if we didn't have different ethnicities and cultures and religions and creeds and genders and all sorts of things, we could not function because we all need the little pieces that we have of each other that are different to survive, to function as a society, to come up with better ideas, to come up with better technology. Like, it's always the people off the beaten path who come up with the craziest ideas at the time, who are the ones that are the revolutionaries. But then we need support people who can see the vision, who like, hey, I think he's nuts, but I'm going to follow along with it. We need the naysayers to keep, spurring them to go forward and to give them the fuel. Then we just need the people who are like, hey, this is a cool idea. I'm going to use this product or subscribe to this idea and keep it moving. So we all play a part, and it just all kind of depends on, the timing, the place, the situation, but we all kind of play a part and we're interdependent on each other in that way. So I think that's kind of the biggest lesson with intersectionality in tech, in spaces where women, people of color are not found very often. It's needed because those opinions, those viewpoints, those cultural beliefs, those things that we all can bring individually, all those things are needed to help it all work together cohesively as one unit. Like water to flow.
Oh, peaceful universe. Yes, I love it.
No, I think that's that's a good point. Because without all these different things, there are no challenges, right? And if you don't have a challenge, then it's like you're just kind of like, if I don't have to do it, there's nothing that's challenging me, or you're just like on that conveyor belt, just going through, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think, having it, and it would be so boring, wouldn't it?
Right. If we were all the same, like so
We're
blah.
all the same. If we had the same beliefs, had the same knowings, had the same, it's like, can you imagine the Smurfs? Just, I mean,
She went to the Smurfs.
I went to the
No
Smurfs.
fun at all.
I haven't watched this yet, so I got to go to something I know. Smurfs.
Well, it's not that type of blue people avatar. It's a different type of avatar.
But it's the same thing, right? Everybody's got their strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's like, what the like team, sometimes, we are stronger together, and the different things, like all the superhero things you think about, all of them, Power Rangers, it's like everybody, got to work together, and the differences. And I do love that then, because, it's always, who doesn't want to learn,
Mm-hmm.
learn to be better, learn to be different, or you maybe learn, that's not how I want to be anymore. Right.
That's so true.
We
Sidebar,
evolve,
like,
we evolve.
right. I was gonna say, sidebar on Power Rangers. I had the biggest crush on the Blue Ranger, like forever. Just so everybody knows.
Right, that's what we're dressing up as next time.
Oh, I was the Pink Ranger when I was a kid. Oh my god! For Halloween, that was my jam. Okay.
You're gonna have to get more guests, because there are not enough of you to be the Power Rangers.
We can get your kids. We get all Jesse's kids, and we're covered, right?
I could cover 5 Power Rangers with my kids, but
I love that. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we can kind of move on to the next question, which is on challenges and triumphs. So for challenges and triumphs, it is listeners can share maybe a personal experience navigating the tech industry or creative fields as women or people of color, drawing parallels with the struggles and victories of characters in the show. So I have a lot of personal experience, specifically being presumed as something that I am not. And I love the fact that I kind of live this out. We all start out in this kind of shell, where guided by our parents, our caregivers, our family, our cultural experiences around us, our environmental experiences, to be a certain way or to talk a certain way or to present yourself a certain way in the world. And I love the fact that I can use a lot of the memories and heritage building that has been endowed in me and kind of express that in ways throughout my personal life, throughout my business, throughout the people that I work with. I love the fact that it's very culturally reflective in my life through personal experiences. So, for instance, I grew up very much in a happy, open cultural space. And I love the fact that many of these characters represent that as well throughout the Avatar series. And I think that's really important when we see elements of ourselves that we kind of, we latch onto it quite a bit. But there's also moments too where it's kind of really tough and you see a character that reflects some of the parts that you don't like, right? There's a lot of parts about Zuko's sister that was hard for me because I felt like, oh, I've definitely been in those places before. I've definitely tried to, pursue the love and affection of a person and of an elder, and so hard that I was willing to alter myself. I was willing to change the kinetics of what I hold to be true different just so I can have that small attachment string to them. And so I really feel like in a lot of ways, Aang was kind of reflective, not Aang, excuse me, the Avatar series was reflective of some of those personal stories. But I'd love to hear from some of you all. Do you guys have personal stories you feel like are reflective of some of the characters? Oh yeah, yeah. Y'all think on that because it's a lot. I know.
You're
There's
like,
a lot.
"Let everybody else step up at once, okay?"
Cicely and I can't find our mute button, so just assume if we don't answer, that's why. Not that we don't know what to say. We just can't figure out how to say it out loud.
I mean, the mute button is very challenging. I'll say though, as a woman in business, as a woman in a creative business, a lot of times my experience is like the people don't want to take you seriously as the expert. And every character experiences that in all of the
Yes.
Avatar, right? At some point, you come across someone who just doesn't, who looks at you and goes, yeah, okay, whatever. And you have to reassert yourself as, I mean, I just had this happen a couple of weeks ago. I was photographing a wrestling tournament for my son. He's 16. And I walked into their practice and the coach came over to me and he said, like, I think you're in the wrong place. And I'm like, nope. Like, and normally, like, I am the first person to like walk away from a conflict. And I'm like, no, I'm definitely in the right place. Like, this is what I'm here for. But it's, people look at you and you're like, yeah, no, you can't do this because you're not what they're expecting or who they anticipate being there. And I can imagine that it would be the same for a woman in tech, for a person of color, for anyone else. I mean, I don't know for certain because I'm not those things. But I imagine that we've all had a similar experience where you walk in and they're like, are you sure you're supposed to be here? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a definite parallel. I think that every Avatar, every airbender, firebender, waterbender has had that experience in the show because like they underestimate them. And as women, I think we get underestimated a lot, which is sad, but also true.
So true. I was going to say the same thing about like, originally when we first met Sokka, right? He had some misogynistic vibes. Like he had them like clearly like girls go do this, girls don't do this. And only guys do this part. Men do the hunting. Girls don't have to do that. Like go cook something, go clean something. And that was like in the very beginning of the series, you clearly got those vibes from him. Like that was the traditional roles. We don't stray away from that. And over the course of the series, what happens? Like I don't want to say he becomes like completely like Slade, but I mean, he's definitely more of I accept you for who you are, not for the role that you're quote unquote intended to fill. And I really like that type of arc character arc overall for him. But at the same time, I think it was also a really good strong personal development tool for him. Like for him to dismantle that type of thinking, he became stronger in other areas. And we saw him less as this person who only thought one way. Now he's a more well-rounded and accepted character by all. And that is totally reflective, I feel like, of women. Once people put down their blockers, once people accept us more for who we are, what we can bring to the table, we're not seen anymore as just the woman over there. We're actually seen as the expert. We're seen as the title that our passions are coming through a little bit stronger than just what we look like or what we're shaped to be, quote unquote. And for that, like, I feel like that's extremely powerful messaging that we can all take away from watching the Avatar. Cicely is snapping. All right. Any other thoughts on this? Jesse, this was fire. Like, I love all this.
Really?
I like how you were like starting this convo and then like people are like, we're all jumping in. Like, I love it.
I don't even like. I can't follow that. Like, I'm the new Priscilla. I can't follow, I can't follow that. Wow. Like, I can't. So just kind of attesting to what you said, especially women and then women of color. Like, there's kind of a different layer there sometimes as well. I would say the only time I can kind of relate, well, recently I can kind of relate to that is like in the nursing profession. There's historically different units or different specialties that a lot of nurses are kept out of, typically like labor and delivery, ICU nurses. And that was one of the things for me, like wanting to be a labor and delivery nurse or working in women's care specifically. I just wanted to make sure that people who look like me or people who don't speak English, in some cases, so people who speak Spanish, people who are not a part of, the regular status quo for patients, that those people would be seen and heard, because I realized like not only like I am you, you are me, like we are the same in that way. I wanted people to feel comfortable. I wanted people to be seen. And then I wanted people when they see me and like know that I'm taking care of them, I wanted them to feel better and feel more at ease about that. So that was kind of a big thing for me, that even though like and for me as a birthing person, I want to see somebody that looks like me. Like, it's hard to find an OBGYN that looks like me in this area. We've only got, I literally think there's maybe 4 Black OBGYNs in this area. I work with one of them. So I know that she's around, but it's not very plentiful. Black pediatricians, also another hard specialty to find here in our area in Lexington. So like, I just wanted to be that person. So that was like my thought when going into a hard specialty, because labor and delivery is difficult. Like, I knew it was going to be hard, but it's difficult. With pregnancy brain, I think as well, it doesn't help. Like, I have, 2 times less brain cells than I had before. I think that's part of the reason why I'm just like, wow, like my mind is blown. But like, honestly, you've got 2 people's lives in your hands, and you're the last line of defense between saving someone's life or someone having a good or bad birth outcome. You and the doctor and, God are the ones who are standing in the way of that happening. So it's a lot of responsibility, but I wanted to take that on because I wanted to be one of the first people, or one of the only people that you see that may look like you, that speaks your language, but that also can relate to you culturally. Like, I think it's so important to have that representation, to know that like, yes, I know this is a scary situation, or, you don't have to, you can ask whatever question you want. And I promise I won't judge you for it being dumb. I might think it's a little silly, but I won't think that you're dumb. I won't think any less than you, and we'll have a good laugh about it and we'll talk about it. And like, I want to help ease that fear. So I think that's a big thing. With just kind of being in an area where you have not been welcomed, or where, some people think you're not supposed to be, is just really, like you did, Jesse, feeling comfortable asserting yourself, like, yes, I'm supposed to be here, actually, sir. So asserting yourself, you feeling comfortable with your abilities, and then also knowing why you're there, like having your why, having that understanding of like why you were put here to do this thing, or knowing and understanding that you're here for a bigger purpose. And even if Joe Blow off the street doesn't think you need to be there or thinks you're in the wrong place, you're exactly where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there.
Shoot. I'll say more. Shall I go on? No. So I found this interesting article on here. They were talking about life lessons learned from there, and I wanted to share it. Like, so they were saying kindness and empathy are fundamental and important values. Respect different cultures. Friendships are powerful and valuable. You don't have to be special to be important. Your family doesn't define you. Your past doesn't define you. Letting go is hard but necessary, and all things are connected. I mean,
Yes.
I mean,
All of that.
yeah, and I think about that, like that can fit in all areas of our, of our lives. And as in this space as women, tech, mothers, it's just I am looking forward to, because I mean, I know I felt like I haven't really brought totally a whole lot to it, because I'm kind of like last to the party, right? But no, but wait, after I watch this and then I say, can we do a part 2? You can all just mute and I'll just
I like that.
I think you picked something on purpose, so then I could be a little zippity zip. No, but I mean, reading all this life lessons that I'm looking forward to watching it and seeing where all these are. But I mean, they're very. I particularly is loving. I particularly is loving that the past doesn't define you. You know.
Mhm.
And but it's kind of also another weird thing where where Jesse was saying, when when we're younger, I mean, I feel the same way too, is when we're younger, we know what we kind of are into and what we like, but then just as we grow up, we just kind of lose track of that. But I think if a lot of us really sat down and thought about, well, what is it that made me happy? Well, that's back then. I mean, because I know sometimes, a lot of times, you all three know that I struggle with that now, as as the non-ang of the group, because I'm bigger. I struggle, and I think like, what is it that really, 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 really made me happy? And it was like the stuff that my friend Tanya, she's like, do you remember when we were younger and what you used to like to do? And I was like, really, did I like doing that? Really? Oh, I guess so. I can see that. But yeah, I think about what would it have been like had I continued on with that. But at the same time, think of all this in between that I built on, because had I stayed on that path, would I be able to bring all these other, other stuff along, and it maybe could go revisiting back the past, it could actually probably improve it a lot. So, and that's what air does.
Yes. I was like, yes. And she brought it back, everybody, for the win. Priscilla. Full circle. I love that. That's beautiful. And it's so on point. Like, that's really the beauty of the show, is that there's so many levels and dimensions. And that's the beauty of what we call this avatar state, where we're able, again, to kind of pull these elements of things that other experiences that other people have gone through, other lifetimes that they've been able to live through. And this is being now passed on to the most updated version of themselves. And that is spot on, I feel like, with air. Like, all these spirits that are coming from behind that are now blowing through each and every one of us until this current version of ourselves. And it's very powerful. And that's the reason why I feel like women, especially women in tech, women creatives, and just minorities in general, we embody this on so many levels. And I feel like sometimes we have, even, I will say, even for a lot of women, we have a deeper understanding, that emotional intelligence on when to lean back instead of pulling forward with nothing, right? We better understand that it's more important for us to go with many than go alone. And even in the moments when we do feel alone, we never truly feel alone. And so I just think that's so reflective of what a strong and amazing avatar is. It's all those feelings all into one, embodied into a physical presence and a physical being. And we march out in that type of spirit. And I think that's beautiful as we kind of go into Women's History Month and really embody the spirit, if you will, of the possibility of doing great things and changing the world and changing history and being history all at the same time. So yeah, everything and everything all at once, right? All the things. We love you, Michelle. All the things. Okay. We have one last question and then we can wrap this all up. Building inclusive communities. What strategies can be adopted from the Avatar universe to foster inclusive environments in tech and creative spaces, ensuring that everyone feels valued and supported regardless of their background? This is, for me, a very obvious kind of space where I just feel like having realms is important. I'd rather have 4 realms represented here than 1 realm, all together. I like the fact that there's diversity in number. I like the fact that there's variety of different types of people that you can learn from one group and you learn from another group and put them together and to make something different. Very much a Ratatouille moment, if you will. I can put one thing and another thing together and I just feel like that's kind of the beauty of what we can learn from the Avatar state and learn from the Avatar universe, is that everybody has their own strengths, everybody has their own weaknesses, but when we can look to each other and look at each other, and again, focusing again on to more so than at, but when we can look to each other and still find a way to together do something greater, I think that's really the heart of it. So, thoughts? Anybody else?
I was like, me and Priscilla, who's gonna do it? I think one of the things, and I was like, where'd it go? I think one of the things that's really important as well, like to fostering that inclusive community, is just understanding that there will be different, like number one, understanding that there's going to be different views, different strategies, different strengths and weaknesses, but also appreciating that if we're all kind of coming together, for the same goal, for the common good, that we should just try to welcome people with open arms. And then especially for people who are kind of used to the status quo, like I remember we were talking about the character who's like, oh, girls do this, boys do this, asking those people to challenge their own views about why they feel like things should work that way and asking them to keep an open mind. So I just feel anytime you can go into a situation with an open mind, we all know what we know, but we also don't know what we don't know. So just be open to learning, to receiving information, taking time to process that information, not necessarily shooting something down all the time. Obviously, if it's like counterintuitive in terms of like, being mean to people or just being outright nasty and having a bad attitude, that's one thing. But just considering other views and considering other ways of doing things, because we all get stuck in a rut, and no matter how open-minded we are, no matter how like liberal we are, no matter how free thinking we think we are, there's always ways to improve in that way. So just we all, like, I feel like a lot of people come in like, yeah, I'm so open-minded, and then your mind may get blown because there were things that you didn't know, or things that you thought you were very receptive to, or things you didn't even know about, and now you've learned about them. So like you've opened up another part of the world to yourself that you never had a chance to. So being open-minded, being receptive, being willing to understand someone's point of view, even if it's the way you've done things for 1,000 years, understanding that change is okay and change is inevitable and it's going to happen whether we want it to or not. So just kind of working with, being like water, flowing with change and not being so resistant to going with the flow. But, just taking that into account that sometimes like life is going to change at rapid speed and we just have to learn, instead of how to go against that change, learn how to work within the change and learn how to flow with the change as well.
That was very powerful. Yeah, Jessie.
I think like for me, helping, like maybe not helping inclusivity, but creating it by helping people find their passion, their fire, their what works for them. Like instead of saying you should be X and you do Y, helping them find the X and the Y that fits them. Because I feel like when you go into a job interview, I haven't gone into one in a really long time, but when you go into a job interview, they ask you some very inside the box questions and they try and put you into you fit this position, you fit that, but like you fit into a box position. I'm assuming in tech it's a lot like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, for creatives, we have a skill. I mean, I have a skill. It's marketable and I do it. But, you go in and instead of finding the passion and instead of questions that help you find a passion in a place that you actually fit into the culture or the workplace, they ask you very generic and non-fulfilling questions and you end up stuck, right? So I think my goal for inclusion and getting people into a better ecosystem is to find a way to help them find their way versus here's your way, don't do it. That would be my suggestion.
Oh, there's the mute button, right? So, I mean, I was thinking about like all of these elements, right? We got earth, air, fire, water, right? That's right, right?
Mhm.
Like, right? Yeah. I was thinking like none of these are permanent states. So we are ever changing. Like, so air can become fire, fire becomes, and all that. And I also think about what was that one movie? Was it Elemental? Right? Right.
Yes.
And I mean, but it's like such a beautiful concept. I mean, it's not even a concept, it's just a beautiful thing, right? If we really realize that, you can't stay permanent, and as much as you want to, you just can't. There's impossible, I think, for us to move through life without having some form of change, whether or not we come in direct contact with it or not. And as far as the building the communities and everything like that, even with okay, I don't know. My brain is trying to go somewhere else, but I'm going to just stop it and kind of bring it back in. air, come on. But no, I think that kind of along with what Cicely was saying, because I've always, along with what Cicely was saying, right, is that open-mindedness, and for you to understand that there are others, and you can be affected. Like, I think a lot of times, like with hate, right? Hatred that's out there, it does affect us, and it does kind of either make us move more or make us whatever. And yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I mean, we're ending this and we'll start it with our part 2 after I watch it. And then
she's going to be, oh, I get it. Like,
oh my God, guys, let's go back. I need to edit some stuff.
Wait.
I said what I said.
Yes. We standing on business in 2024.
Big business.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I love this. I love this, and I do know that this could be a continued conversation in all of the different. When we talk about be interesting, like, right, to having bonus episodes after each month when we talk about our thing. How does that relate to because it would cover. I don't know. I'm just always trying to add more time to spend with you guys.
Which I also think is always precious. Thank you, Priscilla.
Love is in the air.
I love it. Okay, so anybody else have thoughts on this? I think this is very, very strong. Like, this kind of gives me hope for the future too. Like, when I watch Avatar, I really feel like there's more hope for many of us who are holding on to these narratives and trying to make them reality, right? I love how you mentioned, Priscilla, that everything builds upon the other. All the elements are needed in order to move, to shift. It becomes something else. And I really love that, Jesse, you mentioned how we need to create these spaces so that people can figure out what it is that they desire, what they want. Not just bumper stickering, this is what you are, this is what you live up to, this is what you have to do, but instead creating spaces where we can still play, where we can still figure it out, where we can still, harness the basis of it so that we can figure out our own mode and figure out our own path. And maybe that's far away from where we started, or maybe it's closer to where we started. But it's our own, right? We own it. So I think that's really kind of cool. And I really love the fact that we've had these conversations tonight in and around an animated series turned live action movie turned live action series. This kind of storyline is just, it's evergreen. It will never actually go away. Oh man. We missed Jessie there, but I'm really glad that she was able to be on here and she was able to conversate with us tonight. Ending thoughts, ladies. Do you have anything to wrap up?
When can we have a watch party?
Oh, I guess we could do that anytime. We'll
Okay,
have to figure. We'll have to. Yeah, no, I was like, we'll have to round out some dates and see if we can make it happen. I'm totally open. We do this for Game of Thrones, so we do that already here on my side. So,
right.
I would love to be able to do this for the Last Airbender, if we want to do just the Netflix series itself. I'm very open to that.
Yeah,
Very,
because I haven't done a watch party with Danielle since Friday the 13th.
What?
Of 2000 and something else.
It's my fault. Okay, it's my fault because once after we did that, we never circled back to it. And I originally wanted to do, well, I went straight into Game of Thrones. That's what it was. I went straight into House of the Dragon.
Okay.
And so I have a group specifically just for that. So it's just, we're those people. I'm that person. So we do like in-depth discussions a little bit before pregame, and then we do like an in-depth discussion, very deep review of the episode after. And we're usually up until 11 at night after after the episode is aired. We're talking more. So this is something that we could definitely do maybe on a quarterly basis, maybe a watch party. We can watch something together and kind of review it and give some thoughts on it. I'm open to it if you ladies are.
Shoot.
Absolutely.
Okay, that was easy.
I'll have Jesse drive down here.
Schedule problem,
right?
As always.
Well, I mean, you're gonna have babies. That's gonna be.
Well,
I was gonna say, like,
I'm about to start working night shift. I'm ridiculous. Like, I have no nothing. Right.
I'll be hanging out at Cicely's house, so I'll be at Cicely's with the babes, and we'll be hanging out, watching movies, and she'll be snoring.
I'll be with the babies.
I'm gonna have Jesse pick me up.
Jesse, I like babies, but I can give them back.
Yeah,
right. I love other people's babies too. Like, it's great.
I mean, I love babies enough to have 5 kids, right? I birthed 5 children.
And I'll be on 2 and 3. So, I love them that much, but like, here you go, little baby. Go back to your mom. Bye-bye. Go back to your dad.
You can't do that anymore.
Not this time.
I know. They're all mine forever and ever.
We'll all come visit though and hold the babies and rock the babies.
Please do. Yeah. And look, there's enough to go around. So like there's 3 of you, there's 2 babies, just keep passing them.
We don't have to get tired.
Right. Or you get tired of one baby, there's another one.
Pass them. You can set it to 2:00. It'll be a little timer. Time. Everybody
right,
switch.
Rotate.
Pass. Yeah.
I love it. Just pass to the right.
Oh my goodness. Well, y'all, this has been a very informative and very honest and raw and transparent, fun conversation tonight. I really hope that everyone has enjoyed themselves, had a little moment where they kind of laughed, or maybe had a moment where they were like, oh, I'm in my feels. And maybe a moment where you're just simply just nodding your head and completely understanding and agreeing and relating. So, ladies, if there's no final words tonight, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in to the More Than Graphics podcast. And to remind them that for exclusive emails and comprehensive episode details, visit the website at mtgthepodcast.com. And don't forget to connect with us on social media. So remember that you are more than graphics, and we hope that this space ignites your next wave of inspiration to be more than ... So until next time, everybody.
Good night.
And just like that, the episode ends, but the convo has just begun.
Thanks for listening to the MTG podcast.
We want to hear from you. If you enjoyed our podcast, give it a review on your listening app of choice.
Continue to follow us across MTG socials.
And look out for bonus content releases throughout the year. This podcast is produced by Octane Design Studios.
Until next time, friend.